Good morning, everybody.
Morning, folks.
Good morning. Lorraine, did we want to take a screenshot at the start? Maybe if we can get people to turn their cameras on, it would be great.
If that's okay, guys, if you don't mind, just to take record of this, that would be wonderful. If you don't mind popping on your screen, thank you so much.
Hey, Jerry.
Maybe some people haven't brushed their hair.
I thought you were going to say teeth there for a minute, Lorraine. We'll give people another few minutes because 11 o'clock is always the time when people are transferring from other meetings or trying to grab a cup of tea, or I know for some of you it's 12, maybe even 1. So you might be grabbing a sandwich or something.
Or coming from another meeting. Some people are trying to get out of one meeting into the next.
Yeah. Just as long as you're not trying to be in 2 meetings. So that's my ultimate virtual nightmare, that I'll go into a meeting and find myself in there already. It could be scary.
Stranger things have happened.
That's it. That's it. So I think I'll begin and sort of give a little bit of context to the lecture series, and then we'll introduce Majbritt in a few minutes when probably we have more people joining. Some of you may or may not be aware of EU Green. It may be your first interface with us. We're at Atlantic Technological University. We're a member of a European University Alliance called EU Green, which is composed of 9 European universities in peripheral regions who are working together through education, research, engagement, and various transverse activities to create and develop a more sustainable future for our regions. And when I say sustainable, I mean in terms of environment, in terms of economy, and of course in the social context. So really linking to the UN SDG goals. So my name is Frances Lucy. I'm a prof here in ATU, and I work across our 9 ATU campuses. So we've 9 ATU campuses and 9 EU Green regions. And Lorraine Cunningham, who's here with me today, is one of our managers. And we have a team, a small team, administrative team, but more widely, and many of you here, members of our ATU community. So staff, students are involved and engaged in EU Green, and have a lot of opportunities to work together to kind of develop best practice, develop new programs, work together to put in research proposals, work with different organizations, our associate partners. Some of them are here. We've Jerry Doyle here from the Northwest Regional Assembly. We have other partners as well. So we're really trying to do I suppose, do our best to try to find out what the regional needs are and to try to help them in our own capacities as universities, and also strengthen that by having all of the capacities across EU Green. So it's initially a 4-year project. We're halfway through. We're flat out this week trying to finish our midterm review, get that in, and it's very dynamic and organic. So in ATU, we're in charge of the work package on engagement for societies and economies. So this is the first of a lecture series that we're having this year, which will be hosted by each university in turn, with the support and dynamism of our regions. So today, our very first inaugural speaker is Dr. Majbritt Bolton-Warberg. She is the Blue Economy Program Manager at the Marine Institute, and she has 20 years experience in marine science. Majbritt coordinates the Marine Institute's participation in the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership, which provides support to the national blue bioeconomy sector. And she also leads the JPI Oceans Joint Action on Blue Carbon. So I've known Majbritt since she was finishing up her PhD, so it's a great pleasure for me to introduce her today to give her talk. So, Majbritt, all right,
Thanks.
Glap, off you go.
Thank
you.
Thanks, Francis. It's a bit intimidating to be the inaugural speaker on a webinar series, but hopefully I'll do you proud. So I'll just share my screen. You'll let me know if that's not sharing anyway.
So perfect, Majbritt, perfect.
Excellent, and I can still see you because I've set it up. So, so as Francis said, I'm Majbritt, and today I'm going to talk to you about blue bioeconomy and sustainability. I thought I'd just go through a rough idea of the agenda so you knew where we were in it. I'll just tell you a little bit about who I am and the Marine Institute. Francis has already explained a lot of that. What the blue bioeconomy is, how blue bioeconomy and bioeconomy relate to sustainability, or sustainability relates to them, and some research examples. And some industry examples of people working in the blue bioeconomy and how they're trying to make that more sustainable. And then hopefully we'll have plenty of time for questions. So the Marine Institute in Ireland, for those of you who are not familiar with it, we are a state agency, we're a scientific agency with responsibility for supporting the sustainable development of Ireland's marine area and resources. We're a government agency, part of the Department of Agriculture, Food, Fisheries and the Marine. We have a number of campuses. We don't have 9, I don't think. So sorry, we can't link with the 9. Our headquarters are in Galway, and that's where I'm based. I'm actually in a peripheral region at the moment. I live out in Connemara, so that's where I'm based today. And we have a number of research infrastructures, such as the Newport catchment facilities, and we actually have a pilot aquaculture site out here in Connemara. And we also have 2 vessels and an ROV that are available through ship time calls. So we're a unique agency in that we have statutory functions like monitoring the environmental parameters of, say, shellfish beds, monitoring seafood safety, doing aquaculture surveys, doing fishery surveys. But then we also have quite a big research community working in a diverse range of areas, and we're also a national marine research funder. So we're quite unusual in that we have both the funding and the research and statutory components within our work. This is just a quick overview of the types of activities that we are involved in. A lot of people, even in Ireland, aren't aware of the breadth and depth of the work that we do. So everything from fisheries and ecosystem services to marine spatial planning, aquaculture, climate change. We even do economics work and produce an ocean economics report every year. I work in a group called the Policy Innovation and Research Service Group. We're quite a small group, but we also have quite a breadth of work that we're involved in. And across the Institute, we also we give advice for policy and research scientific advice to both our parent agency, the Department of Agriculture, but also to other departments departments within our government and other stakeholders. So, for example, our fisheries surveys would be that information would be fed into the International Council for the Exploration of Seas, or ICES, who would establish fishing quotas and things like that. This slide pretty much, Frances has already explained. My main responsibility is coordinating our participation in the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership. It is a Horizon Europe partnership. I'll have a couple of slides on that, just for your information, in case there's anybody in your universities or in your networks that would be interested in learning a little bit more about that. And then I have a few other roles, including that of national support and coordination for the blue bioeconomy. And I've been in the Marine Institute about 4 years now, and my initial role was coordinating our participation in another co-funded program called Blue Bio. So it was focusing on providing funding for blue bioeconomy based projects. So just a couple of slides about the partnership. It's quite big. We're up to 75 partners across 30 countries. In the background there, you can see the outlines of the countries that are involved. So we even have Brazil, recently Ukraine and Georgia got involved. A lot of planned investments, 450 million over a 7-year work programme with 6 co-funded calls for R&I projects. We've already had 2 of those calls. The third one will be launched later this year. And we have this time a focus on 5 what we call intervention areas or topics. They're quite broad, everything from digital twins to blue bioresources or blue bioeconomy. And the most recent one that's been added is coastal resilience. So what we've seen is that there's a real opportunity for people to get involved from across disciplines. So I know there aren't a lot of universities within the EU Green Alliance that maybe have a marine component, but there are opportunities there for engineers, for tech people, for computing, for social scientists, for economics. It's very broad ranging. So I'd encourage people to have a look at the partnership website, which I'll share at the end. But we're here today to talk about blue bioeconomy. And I always like to start with a definition of what that is, because if you type blue bioeconomy into Google, you will get a lot of different definitions. And this is the one that I've landed on after 4 years in the field. It's using and converting living aquatic resources. And aquatic could mean marine. And usually when people hear the word blue, they think marine only, but it also includes freshwater or brackish water, so any water source, and using those resources and creating products and services. And a big difference in some of the definitions relates to at what point in the value chain you start considering something part of the blue bioeconomy. And a lot of places ignore the primary production end of things, so where you get your biomass source. But for me, that's the crux of it. Where do you get your biomass? So I have them broadly defined as either harvesting or production. And harvesting can, yes, include fisheries, very traditional. Could be fish, could be scallops, oysters, anything, crabs, lobsters. In Ireland, we also include seaweed under this harvesting, because we hand harvest our seaweed, and you can just about see my neighbour Johnny lifting a fork full of seaweed. All of the wild seaweed is harvested in Ireland using hand harvesting methods. They're not machine harvested. But it could also mean taking bacteria or sponges or those things that we wouldn't necessarily think of as food, because they can be used in a variety of ways. And then on the other side, you've got production, so that's aquaculture. In Ireland, the main species that we produce is salmon. We also have fully freshwater species like trout and perch. They're smaller, and we have mussels and oysters. And we also have a growing seaweed aquaculture sector. And then I like the little graphic at the bottom. That's taken from the Danish Technical University. They have a very nice overview of what the blue bioeconomy is. And it gives you a feel for the types of products that could be used beyond your usual assumption that it's food or feed. That's not an exhaustive list. There are other things that it can create, but I'll show you a few examples of those later. So sustainability within the blue bioeconomy. The bioeconomy, which is a relatively new term, encompasses all living resources, so both land-based and aquatic-based resources. And there are 4 principles that underpin that, that concept. And really, for me, the ethos of the bioeconomy is sustainability. And that means not having a negative impact on either the environment or people or the economy. And particularly that any activity within the bioeconomy should not degrade resilience or biodiversity within an ecosystem. And I have this picture of a man from quite a long time ago in Ireland, who's hand harvesting seaweed and carrying it to where it's being collected. But these people, they work so closely in the environment that they know when to stop cutting an area because they know how long it will take to regenerate. And that to me was the essence of sustainability, because they knew the environment and how much they could take from it without over exploiting it. The second principle is the cascading principle. And that's really about value added applications. So it's using the resource to maximize its potential for more high value added applications. So not for, say, energy or fuel generation, but for things like making nutraceuticals or feed ingredients or those high value added. So it's increasing the economic potential of that. And the second picture there is some work that's being done by another government agency in Ireland. It's our agricultural research agency called Teagasc. And they're looking at the different products that you can extract from a particular seaweed. In this case, it's kelp. And beyond just what a lot of seaweed, particularly the type that's being carried by that man in the picture, a lot of that seaweed is dried and used in, say, cosmetics. So there isn't that value added. There's nothing being extracted from that. So with some of the other species, people are really delving into what molecules, what compounds you can get, and they can be used for everything from treating diabetes to different metabolic syndromes, or they can be feed additives. So there's a whole plethora of things that can be used. The third principle underpinning the blue bioeconomy, or the bioeconomy in general, is the precautionary principle. And that's really about risk management and ensuring that any policies and actions that we undertake in the bioeconomy are not impacting either the environment or humans. And the final principle is the food first principle, and that's really about prioritizing food and nutrition security. Yep, that's that. The other thing that I have to mention with regards to sustainability is the circular economy. I'm not sure if that's a term that all of you are aware of. What we're trying to remove ourselves from in society is this linear economy where we take a resource, we convert it into something that we will use, we use it, and then we throw it away. What we want to do is make sure that any product that we have made stays in the system for as long as possible. And so what we are trying to evolve and adapt into is a circular economy. And apologies, this is me as a scientist trying to be artistic and put some semblance of an idea of what a circular blue bioeconomy value chain would look like. So really, for me, it starts on the top with your biomass, your harvesting, your production. Those methods, those production processes, they all need to be sustainable in order for us to have a working and feasible and sustainable blue bioeconomy. From those, you might have byproducts, but usually if you work in a clockwise fashion, you would take your resource, you would do some processing with it, you would create a product. Along the way, you would probably have side streams. Typically, they would have been thrown away. So let's say, for example, you're a fisher, and you catch a load of fish, you put them through the factory, and you're taking fillets from the fish. You're probably throwing away the head and the carcass and the guts. Now there are any number of companies that are taking advantage of that. There are multiple companies up in the northwest of Donegal that take carcasses from those factories and make pet food. And anybody who has a dog or a cat knows how much we spend on pet food and our lovely furry friends. So it's a great value added, but it's also removing that waste stream from disposal. And I suppose what we're trying to do is maximize what's happening on the right-hand side of that circle and minimizing what's going to disposal. And ideally, nothing would be going to disposal. And in aquaculture production for a long, long time, fish was caught and it was used to create fish meal to feed the aquaculture fish. And there was a lot of controversy about that. But for decades, the industry has been trying to find alternative sources of protein. And now what they're trying to do is using some of the byproducts from the production processes to raise things like insects as an alternative protein source. And so we're keeping all of those components within that circular economy. And I think there's still some way to go, but I think we've done a really, really good job. So that's kind of the sustainability and blue bioeconomy in a nutshell as an overview. What I'd like to do is give you some examples of what's been happening in research. I could probably spend another 45 minutes to an hour giving you cool examples, but I've tried to limit it. So I'm going to do a couple from research and a couple from industry. And the research ones, I'm going to tell you about a bio-based product, a biomedical application, and some work that's being done to try and make the production of blue bioresources more sustainable. So the first one is a project called Plasticity. It's finished now, but the partners in that have collaborated with others, and they've moved this now along. And what they're doing is they are using seaweed, both cultivated and wild species, to make bioplastic. And what I love about the bioeconomy in general and the blue bioeconomy in particular is that quite often it's not just about we have this biomass, let's use it in the best way possible and exploit it. They're thinking about other societal challenges that could be addressed by using these biomasses. I have a link there for the project if you want to read more about it. But also, if you Google Blue Bio Co-Fund, you'll come across all of the information from that co-fund, which is now finished. On the right-hand side, you'll see a picture of the portfolio of outputs and commercialization needs. I created one of those for each of the projects that we had under Blue Bio Co-Fund. It was unusual in that we made industry mandatory. At least one partner from each of the consortia had to be from industry. And the reason that we did that is because we wanted to try and move any products and services that were created in a research setting into the market, which is incredibly difficult when you've got the likes of us in the Marine Institute. We can only fund technology readiness levels up to so much, and it doesn't quite hit the market phase. So that's why we wanted industry to be involved from the very, very beginning. And what we did for this, we were looking at how we could support our projects in helping them get their products to the market. And what we found is, by and large, it was great in a lab setting, but it was very, very difficult for them to scale up. And that seems to be the problem with the blue bioeconomy, is getting funding to go from research to pilot to commercial. Now, a lot has happened in this space, and particularly in Ireland, they are funding very big demonstration sites, which is fantastic. And on a European level, you've got the Circular Bio-Based Europe joint undertaking, which is a collaboration between the Commission and industry. And they're really driving these more pilot scale and commercial scale. So there's a lot of opportunity here to take research to the next level. This is another project also funded under Blue Bio Co-Fund. It was the only one funded that had an industry partner as the coordinator. All of the others were academic. And these guys, Regenix, they're based in Norway. And what they did is they created a wound healing dressing for hard to heal wounds. But interestingly, what they did was they took a resource that was being thrown out, so unfertilized salmon eggs, which couldn't be used in the aquaculture industry, and they took this and were able to use it in this wound healing dressing. So that was very exciting. And they're
so the one do not turn into any, they just do not develop to actually use as a component into those patches.
I'm just going to do that. There we go. I think she was talking about that, but I'm not entirely sure.
It sounded like she was, yeah. Just make sure everybody have your mics off. Thank you.
So they were at such a high level of market readiness that they were ready for a funding for a clinical trial. This isn't the only company that is doing this. There are other companies that are not looking at unfertilized salmon eggs, but looking at fish skin. So there's an Icelandic company that has really taken off with this. So it's not unusual to be using these bioactive components from blue bioresources. But this is one of the projects that we funded. And then in terms of the production and trying to make things more sustainable, the Astral project is something that finished up last year. The Marine Institute was part of that. We used our pilot aquaculture site out in Connemara for some of the work that was being done. It was a European funded project with a number of countries that are probably on the call at the moment. And they were developing, or I suppose continuing to develop, this production method called integrated multi-trophic aquaculture. It's not a brand new concept. It's been around for a while, but there's still a lot of I suppose a lack of adoption within the industry for this method of cultivation, and it's about increasing the number of species so in your aquaculture site. So I suppose making it more like a more natural environment. So you have different types of species. You wouldn't just have fish, you would have seaweeds, which could extract some of the nutrients that were being released from the fish. You would have benthic dwellers that could remove detritus and benefit from that. So it's a way of utilizing the ecosystem more efficiently, but also for farmers, it would be a way of increasing their economic and sustainable viability. And then for industry, again, I have three examples. One is from fisheries. One is as a nod to Frances because she's an invasive species expert. And the third one, because that's my neighbour Johnny, and he, you talked about peripheral, the fact that you're all based in peripheral areas. Johnny is, as you can see, a seaweed harvester, but in other times of the year, he fishes for lobster, for crab, and for shrimp. So for rural communities, and I'm living on an island sitting here right now with 50 houses on it. We're very rural. We spent 5-6 days without power after the last storm. Blue bioeconomy is actually an incredibly important resource for the community. And it's vital for well-being, for their economic well-being. So that's why I've included him in this. So with fisheries always gets a bad rap, and I'm sure there are plenty of reasons for that. But this particular group, Atlantic Dawn, are based in the northwest of Ireland, out of Killybegs, which is a fishing port in Donegal. And I've done a lot of looking at industry web pages because I spend a lot of time trying to raise awareness of the blue bioeconomy to a variety of stakeholders. And I'm always interested in trying to get industry speakers. And so that the first thing I do is I look at their web pages and see what they have to say about sustainability. And Atlantic Dawn Group have a whole page on their commitment to sustainability, not just in terms of their fishing practices and reducing bycatch, but they have spent a considerable amount of their own money without government funding to green their vessels. So trying to reduce the carbon footprint of their actual vessels and not burning as much petrol or diesel. And they've also been certified through Ireland's food and drink sustainability programme called Origin Green, so they're a member of that. And they've also been certified through the Marine Stewardship Council, which is a sustainable fishing award that is given. And so I just wanted to highlight them, and that the fishing industry isn't just trying to take everything out of the sea and make lots of money. In Ireland in particular, the fishing industry was hit very hard. Their quotas were reduced because Britain left Europe. And so they're really struggling to find what that will mean for their future. And I think blue bioeconomy is going to play a part in that. If they can make the most out of their catch rather than just selling them whole, then I think that will be really important for their futures. The invasive species, Francis, I hope you're listening and you just have your camera off because you're having a cup of tea. Because this is you are there. Okay, this is for you. We all have heard about invasive species. There is a green crab that was invasive to North America, and what they were doing was they were catching it and disposing of it in landfill. I'm guessing that they can't eat this particular species, because this company has decided to take them and make whiskey. Now, I like whiskey as much as the next person. I'm not sure I want to try one that's made from green crab. And I understand it's quite a, what do you say? An acquired taste.
An acquired taste.
But, you know, I think that that's great that they're at least looking at different uses for it. What I think is more fascinating were these quagga mussels that invaded in London. And what they've done is they've used the shells to make coloured glass. And it's interesting because if you read the article, they talk about traditional methods of glass making. And I think they did this in North America too with another invasive species. But I just think the ingenuity of people to rather than just collecting these species and dumping them, finding a use for them. I gather again that you can't eat quagga mussel, actual mussel, or people would, but I just think that that's interesting that people have found a way of making some money on a problem, and that's the interesting thing about the blue bioeconomy. And the last one I have is around seaweed, and it's particularly this species that is hand harvested in Ireland. The seaweed cultivation is a totally different species. This particular species, it's called Ascophyllum nodosum, cannot be cultivated. So it's only available through wild harvesting. And in Ireland, as I said, we hand harvest, and they don't carry it on their backs anymore. What they do is they gather them into these bundles, which are called climeen. That's an Irish word. And they tie them together with ropes and bring them along the pier, all collected at low tide, and then they float them to the pier and a truck comes and collects them. And then there are a number of different countries. I've focused on BioAtlantis, which are a West Coast company, where they take this and they turn it into biostimulants. What's interesting about BioAtlantis is they're quite a small company, but they've really grown. And they're selling internationally, and they have their own research and development group within them, which I think is quite unusual for a fairly small company. So they're involved in European projects, and particularly looking at how to improve crops, soil regeneration and things like that. So I think they're very, very interesting. I've left their website on, and I'm happy for you to share the slides if anybody is interested. So that's the end of the examples. I just kind of put this up as a reminder of kind of where we are. Really, the bioeconomy is underpinned by those 4 principles that I mentioned. But for me, it's really the biomass, not just where it came from and how it's produced, how it's harvested, and the techniques that are used to do that, that has to be sustainable. But then it's all of the downstream from that. Are we making the best use of it? Have we harvested it and produced it in a sustainable way? Are we making the most of what we have? Are we reducing the waste? And because you're in peripheral areas, this is really important for coastal communities. A lot of the work that's being done is being done in rural coastal communities. There's a very interesting man who catches crab down in the south of the country, and he had a lot of waste and he couldn't do anything with it. So he decided to do some trial and error himself, and started putting it on his own crops and seeing great results. And then his neighbour had a problem with some pest in the potato fields and couldn't use it, and they started spreading it around. And so he's not a scientist and didn't go to college, just decided that he would try these things on his own, very small business, family business. And suddenly he's potentially got a product that could actually make him a decent amount of money on things that he was having to pay other people to get rid of. And that to me is just an amazing story of someone who says, do you know, I have a problem, I'm going to try and solve it myself. And I think that's great. And that's what the bioeconomy is. And thankfully, this is becoming something that is more and more supported by governments, by the European Commission. So there is a lot of funding in this area. So that's it for me. That's my email address. It's not like I'm difficult to find. I have an unusual name. I'm on LinkedIn if you want to reach out. That's the website of the partnership. If feel free to share it with your colleagues, with your network. And there's a newsletter to subscribe to, so you'll hear about upcoming calls. And then I run an X page called Blue Bioeconomy Ireland. It's more focused. Obviously, I try and share information for Irish stakeholders, but it's as broad as possible. So that's, yeah, I'll stop sharing my screen, and then if there are any questions.
Majbritt, thanks very much. That was really interesting, and I think heartening that there's so many opportunities out there for, the common man or woman in rural areas, and that there's more linkages to support innovation and ideas. I have a few questions of my own, but I wanted to open up the floor to see, have we got questions from the floor? Felipe.
Hello everybody. I sorry because I came in a bit late. I lost some minutes of this dissertation that I think that is great. It's many things, many issues, many topics came to my mind during your dissertation. Okay, I have some small questions. I have heard you speak about insect and the influence of insect in your work, and we are developing in New Green a series of dissertation about insects that is called Insectopia. I don't know if you could add something about insect and blue bioeconomy, perhaps Margaret. And this is my first question. And second one is about the water status, because many times we are, or in your dissertation, you are speaking of options to get money or incomes or funding from different ways, different spaces of the blue bioeconomy. What about water status? are we taking care of this water that we are going to drink, or we have in our oceans? In our, I have two more, but I'm going to stop because I think it's too much for me today. But if you could answer this question, please.
Okay, I'll go with Insectopia first. I personally have not got a lot of experience with using insects. We did try and use them for a particular type of fish that is used to clean parasites off farmed salmon, to some degree of success. But there is a lot of work done in Europe and some in Ireland on using those. So if you needed somebody for that, I'm sure I could find somebody that could speak more eloquently and with more expertise than I could on that. And water status, yeah, that is considered. I mean, that is part of the sustainability element. It's not just about the ecosystem, and the water status is very important.
Majbritt, I'd like to ask a little bit more about the connectivity, because I know it's a challenge for us in EU Green, reaching out to interested people. They're not like you talked about this man who's developing his own product, but sometimes people don't have the confidence. They might have the capability, they mightn't have the confidence, or they might not be very tech savvy. How do we improve connections with our people in our regions?
That's a good question, and it's something that often comes up. And since I started working in the blue bioeconomy, the connectivity is a big problem, because quite often, particularly for businesses, it's their livelihood, so they're very focused on that, and it can be hard for them to think outside the box. And therefore, I think things like this, where people are hear what's going on, they have the opportunity to make those connections. I think in-person events are very important, and I think getting into the communities is important.
Yeah, maybe you had this. Maybe you could tell people very quickly about this libraries events that you held, because they were fantastic.
So in Ireland, we have a week of the year that we devote to the bioeconomy. It's called Bioeconomy Ireland Week. It's driven by the government, and this year, or last year, gosh, it's already January. Last year I ran a library campaign, because often Bioeconomy Ireland Week was people who knew about the bioeconomy talking to other people who knew about the bioeconomy. And for us, it was very important to get to the people that would actually be buying products, or the people who would be producing products or could potentially make other products. So we decided to get into the libraries. They're a great resource. I don't know what they're like across Europe, but in Ireland, they're a central point, mostly for a younger generation, which is great, because they're the people you want to inform, and they will inform their families. And so we had speakers from industry, from government, from research, and a schools education program that gave workshops across the country. And we reached about 600 students across the week. So I'm hoping to repeat that this year. And really, the schools program was the best, and it was the best received. But another thing that people did 2 years ago was they converted a bus, strangely, into kind of what would bioeconomy look like for you at home, and they travelled around the country.
I like this idea of the EU Green Bus going all over Europe. Yeah.
We thought about that for the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership, is like a mobile exhibit. And it's advertising that, because sometimes people don't know where to look at, and how do you, my network is scientists and policymakers. It's very hard to reach your community. County councils, I think, are important. The climate action officers and the biodiversity officers, they're very engaged. And the libraries have something for every week, whether it's Heritage Week, Biodiversity Week, Oceans, they have something for everything. I think they're a really good resource.
That's great. There's a question from Sinead Scully.
Hi, Majbritt. Hi, everybody. Great talk. Thank you very much. I just noticed on your graphic, it was based on the SDG graphics. You have a section marked as Ireland's Digital Ocean. I'd love to hear more about that, or if you've any resources to share about what is that about?
No, that it was an intervention area for the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership. So one of the topics, a digital twin of the ocean. Ireland is working on that. I can find that information. I don't have it to hand. And basically it's about improving the models that we have for the ocean in order to determine what might happen given various scenarios. So it's about feeding data into that type of model.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Thanks. Do we have any more questions? Raquel.
Thank you, Francis. Thank you, Majbritt. I don't know if this...
Majbritt.
Majbritt. Sorry, because sometimes it's
I
very
know.
difficult to pronounce the Irish name. Thank you very much for your talk. And Francis, know that we try to learn Irish.
Well, she has a Danish name.
I have a Danish name.
Danish. I'm so sorry. Thank you very much for your talk. I have a question regarding products coming from fishes. I don't know if maybe this question is not very appropriate in this forum, but I have been in some institutes in Portugal related with the sea, with the ocean products and so on, and they have a working line regarding to create products. Luxury products, I mean, for instance, cookies or sweets or something different, not the typical product that usually we used to eat from the ocean, but something different. So, for instance, also I think that in Denmark they use the skin of the fishes to do some purses, some bag, some different clothes and something. So, well, this is my curiosity. Do you have some working line regarding these quite different products coming from the sea?
How do you mean a working line? Like a
process?
I mean, like
a research line or research,
No, I mean, gosh, people are doing so many different things. I think the thing is, how do you get the research into the market? You know, it's easy to do it. Yeah. Portugal is amazing in blue bioeconomy. You're doing so many great things. So no, we don't have a particular line that says let's focus on this. Okay. I think in Ireland we're quite food focused. And then it's about what we can derive beyond that. And I think nutraceuticals is quite high on the list, is how can we break into that market. But yeah, I have seen bioeconomy, land-based waste or side streams that are used to make cookies and things like that. Anything goes, really.
Yeah. Okay, because maybe in New Green we can use these different products to promote bioeconomy or biomarine and everything. Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Olaf.
Yes, hello, Olaf from University of Gävle in Sweden. I definitely thought your name was Swedish.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and our chancellor before the one we have now, her name was actually Majbritt.
Finally, Majbritt.
Finally, someone who's met somebody with my name.
Yeah. So no, but thank you very much for a very interesting presentation and inspiring, really. I'm from a totally different field, humanities, so I'm not really into this, but it was really nice. And also nice to hear about how you managed to reach out and connect with people.
If I had more time, that would be ideal, or I had a second me.
Yeah.
But I think everybody is in that boat.
Okay. Yeah, and then I thought maybe Lucia can just tell that the next lecture in this series will be from our university, and it will be about inner development goals.
Oh,
Yeah.
Very good.
wow.
Great.
Cool.
Great.
Thanks.
So we'll promote it. Winston, you have a question. Hello, Winston. You're on mute. I saw him earlier, but yeah, he's having problems. So, Majbritt, your talk was so inspiring.
Oh, good.
We're most of us here in EU Green are in the middle of the final days of writing our midterm report. So it was just fantastic to completely move away from that and hear something that's so inspiring. And as you say, not a lot of us are connected to the marine. The Spanish, the Portuguese, Swedish, the Irish, but that doesn't matter. I mean, we have partners that are in Central Europe, and these issues are still really important, because when I've been in Oradea in Romania, fish is still big, right? It's still big on the menu. So the whole circular economy around this is really important. And I remember 20 years ago, my surprise that dead fish were being taken away from the Loch Almond fish farm to be used to make perfume. And I thought, wow, that's just, who would even think of that, you know?
What does that smell like?
Much better, I think, than Mort's. Anybody who's smelt dead fish, you'll know. But it's just, we have to really concentrate and focus on the blue bioeconomy, and it's fantastic that the Marine Institute are supporting that, and that they're supporting you in your career. And we'd all like to thank you for coming along today. And thanks to everybody who came. I hope you've all been inspired, and we'll have Majbritt's presentation available for you. And
please do reach out and if you have any other questions, I'm happy to engage with you. I noticed that the members of EU Green, all of those countries are part of the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership, including Romania.
Very good. So that's it. We didn't know. We probably didn't know that. Yeah,
Olav, we're definitely looking for more humanities people to come on board. We definitely need you and your position. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Francis.
Gurmila Magwiv, and thank you, Majbritt, and to see everybody soon. And thank you. Bye-bye. Have a good Friday and a good weekend. Okay. Bye now.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.